Welcome to the Reparenting Daily podcast. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into reparenting, exploring all of the tools and resources that you'll need to help you along your journey. This podcast is divided into 3 sections. First is a daily reading. Second is a discussion on the reading followed by journal prompts. And the last section is a peaceful meditation for closing. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys, from whenever and wherever you're joining us. Thank you for being here for another day of reparenting. So happy you can be here again today. Just as a reminder, please go ahead and give me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or give me some comments, likes on YouTube podcasts, wherever you're listening. Try to give me some engagement so we can get some more attention focused towards the podcast, get some more people coming to join us, some more people who will be able to join the community and join us along on this journey. I've really appreciated the challenge so far to be there for myself, first of all, and also to be there for all of you who are listening. We are on day 155, so we're coming a long way, guys. Today, we're going to start on a new book, and we're going to do a reading from this book for the next few days. This book is called the Kybalion, and it's a combination of ancient Egyptian and Greek philosophies put together into a list of 7 principles. As I promised yesterday, today we're going to look at the principle related to truth. If you remember in particular, as I mentioned, all truths are but half-truths. So in order to make the juxtaposition against what we read from ACA yesterday, I'd like to read this section from the Kybalion, which is about the principle number 4, the principle of polarity. These are laws of the universe that come from the Kybalion. You will find a free version of the PDF in the show notes because it's quite older text. You can also find a link to buy your own copy from Amazon in the show notes. Just as a reminder, I do get a small commission from each of those sales that you buy from the books in Amazon in the links for the show notes. So that's a way you can support the podcast if you like. Without further ado, let's start on the reading. The Kybalion. Number 4, the principle of polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. The Kybalion. This principle embodies the truth that everything is dual. Everything has 2 poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. All of which were Hermetic axioms. It explains the old paradoxes that have perplexed so many, which have been stated as follows. Thesis and antithesis are identical in nature, but different in degree. Opposites are the same, differing only in degree. The pairs of opposites may be reconciled. Extremes meet. Everything is and isn't at the same time. All truths are but half-truths. Every truth is half false. There are 2 sides to everything, etc., etc. It explains that in everything there are 2 poles, or opposite aspects, and that opposites are really only the 2 extremes of the same thing, with many varying degrees between them. To illustrate, heat and cold, although opposites, are really the same thing. The difference consists merely of degrees of the same thing. Look at your thermostat and see if you can discover where heat terminates and cold begins. There is no such thing because there's no such thing as absolute heat or absolute cold. The 2 terms heat and cold simply indicate varying degrees of the same thing. And that same thing, which manifests as heat and cold, is merely a form, variety, and rate of vibration. So heat and cold are simply the two poles, of which we call heat, and the phenomena attendant thereupon are manifestations of the principle of polarity. The same principle manifests in the case of light and darkness, which are the same thing, the difference consisting of varying degrees between the two poles of the phenomenon. Where does darkness leave off and light begin? What is the difference between large and small, between hard and soft, between black and white, between sharp and dull, between noise and quiet, between high and low, between positive and negative? The principle of polarity explains these paradoxes, and no other principle can supersede it. The same principle on the mental plane. The same principle operates on the mental plane. Let us take a radical and extreme example, that of love and hate. Two mental states apparently totally different, and yet there are degrees of hate and degrees of love, and a middle point in which we use the terms like or dislike, which shade into each other so gradually that sometimes we are at a loss to know whether we like or dislike or neither. And all are simply degrees of the same thing, as you will see if you will but think a moment. And more than this, and consider of more importance by the Hermetist, is that it is possible to change the vibrations of hate to the vibrations of love in one's own mind and in the mind of others. Many of you will read these lines and have personal experiences of the involuntary rapid transition from love to hate, and the reverse in your own case and that of others. And you will therefore realize that that the possibility of this being accomplished by the use of will, by means of Hermetic formulas, good and evil are but poles of the same thing, and the Hermetists understand the art of transmuting evil into good by means of an application of the principle of polarity. In short, the art of polarization becomes a phase of mental alchemy, known and practiced by the ancient and modern Hermetics masters. An understanding of the principle will enable one to change one's own polarity as well as that of others, if we will devote the time and study necessary to master the art. Thank you, and that's the reading for today. Welcome back. Thanks for being here for another day of reparenting as we take our first dive into the Kybalion. We reviewed the principle of polarity. I'm not sure how familiar and in touch with philosophy you all are, but this can be quite of a deep reading. We actually just read from the beginning section on page 30. Where did we start? On page 32, in case you want to go back and read along in the free PDF that's in the show notes, talking about the laws of polarity, how learning how to master these energies will allow us to create our own truth, to create our own reality. Why bring this book? Because the Kybalion is a tool that we can use to empower ourselves. These are principles that have been shared across multiple religions, multiple cultures for thousands of years, carried down, transmutated, transformed, and they really show up in every major religion and most of the philosophical revelations of the past 3 centuries. And for reparenting ourselves and creating our own grounding and our stability, we can really use the Kybalion, or I have used the Kybalion to strengthen my connection with the higher power. Now, I don't view the higher power as the Christian God as a man who sits in the cloud and has interaction and says, okay, this is, you're going to have this punishment, or this is going to happen to you. I don't believe in that and praying to a specific man. It's more about connecting with an energy, the source of the universe, the one thing that makes everything what it is, that God particle. And so today, let's reflect on the principle of polarity and how that can be leveraged in your life to remove some of your stress, maybe. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unalike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet, all truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. And so, as we reflect on this today, try to think about how you can integrate some of this understanding from the Kybalion into your own life to decrease pressure, to confront your catastrophizing tongue twister there today. How can you use this idea that all truths are half-truths to decrease the internal stress that you put on yourselves from the internal black and white thinking? The principle of polarity can be used directly to face your black and white thinking. This is how you own your perspective. This is how you create your reality. No matter how much pain you have been through, how much struggle, how much despair, you always have control over your reality and your perspective. And the Kybalion is an excellent tool to begin to empower you to make those shifts. So as always, thanks for being here. Take care of yourself and be well. And now, let us move on to the final section, the meditation. This is an unguided meditation. I will simply provide some music and you can take some time to relax. Please feel free to choose a location and a place where you feel safe and where you can be undisturbed for the next 10 minutes. You can choose to be sitting down, standing, as you like, wherever you are most comfortable. Thank you for being here and enjoy the meditation.